Good evening, everyone. I'm Brian Trumbore with your nightly review for Tuesday, February 5th. Guess who did that song? Why, that was the Association from the movie Goodbye Columbus, which was 44 years ago. 1969, Richard Benjamin, Ali MacGraw. Of course, the Mets also won the World Series back then, right, little guy? And that's why we brought him up. Well, it was an interesting day. The stock market recouped most of its losses from yesterday. Dow Jones finished up 99 points, or about 0.7%. to 13,979. It crossed 14,000 again a few times today. S&P 500 was up 1%, 15 points to 1511, or 54 shy of its all-time high. And NASDAQ closed up 41.3%. European markets were better, though they did not come close to recouping all of their losses. London was up 0.6%, Frankfurt up 0.4%, Spain up 2.1%, Italy up 1.1%. Both Spain and Italy, recall, fell about 4% yesterday. Just one note on Europe: the Eurozone composite reading of both manufacturing and the services sector, so their composite PMI, did rise to a 10-month high of 48.6 for January from 47.2 in December. The preliminary reading had been 48.2. Germany's comp PMI came in at 54.4, its highest since June 2011. But France fell to its lowest in 4 years, 42.7. That's awful. Spain had a 19-month low at 46.5, and Italy a 2-month low at 45.0. Again, that's a combination of manufacturing and services. In Washington, Democrats are holding a closed-door retreat today, and it appears they want to present a smaller package than the $1.2 trillion in automatic cuts to take effect March 1st, the sequester. But every one of the Democrats' alternatives involves more revenue. And then President Obama stepped forward this afternoon saying we need to keep chipping away, and he wants to delay deep indiscriminate cuts in domestic and defense programs. But some Democrats are talking of higher taxes on oil companies, taxing private equity managers' carried interest as ordinary income rather than at the lower capital gains rate, which would bring in evidently $16.8 billion. This should be done, and Republicans once agreed to it, but now they've boxed themselves in with the talk of no more revenue. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell said yesterday the challenge we face right now is the fact that government spending is completely out of control, so to focus on a tax of any kind is to miss the point entirely. Regarding the continuing resolution, the CR, whose deadline is March 27, Republicans are going to propose that spending on government be reduced from the current $1.04 trillion to $974 billion, which would be substantial. All right, so you see the two sides. We're back where we started from. It's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be a lot more interesting than the situation we had at the end of the year. The Congressional Budget Office today projected that the budget deficit for the fiscal year ending September 30 will come in at $845 billion, so the first year in the Obama administration where it is under $1 trillion. One corporate note, Michael Dell is orchestrating a $24.4 billion leveraged buyout of the computer maker he founded about 30 years ago in what would be the largest private equity deal since the global financial crisis. Dell is going to be joined in an investment group by Silver Lake Partners and Microsoft. Shareholders are to get $13.65 a share. Dell stock closed today at $13.40. It was $10.80 on January 11th before news hit that Dell was interested in doing something like this. It was $18 a share last February. And before the crash in the year 2000, Dell was trading above $50 at a market cap above $100 billion. It was the world's largest computer maker, and now it's number 3 behind Hewlett-Packard and Lenovo. I've been writing a lot about currency wars in my Week in Review column. Francesco Guerrera in the Wall Street Journal today had an interesting column on the topic. He quotes Mohamed El-Erian, CEO and co-chief investment officer of PIMCO. I don't remember central banks being so deep in experimental mode. It is equivalent to a pharmaceutical company that feels forced to bring a new medicine to the market even though it has not been properly tested. So how will it end? Well, James Rickards, an expert on the currency topic, predicts that people who ask me who's winning, I say nobody. I expect the international monetary system to destabilize and collapse. There will be so much money printing by so many central banks that people's confidence in paper money will wane and inflation will rise sharply. I should mention that oil closed at $96.70 today. Speaking of inflation, the nationwide average at the pump is up to $3.53, which is an all-time record for February. When you couple that with the recent payroll tax hike, $1,000 annually for someone earning $50,000, between the payroll tax hike and gasoline prices, you have two headwinds. That's for sure. Back to the currency front, French President Francois Hollande issued a warning over the current strength of the euro and damaging the European economy. He's calling for international action. He said he was not calling for this European Central Bank to set an exchange rate target, but he demanded an indispensable reform of the international monetary system. Adding, if not, we are insisting on countries making efforts to be competitive, which are destroyed by the rising value of the euro. The White House announced today that President Obama is going to finally visit Israel sometime this spring. Details to follow. In Israel, And criticism directed at Yesh Atid leader Yair Lapid. Recall he was the surprise second-place finisher in the recent election. Former Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman said at the opening of today's Likud Beitenu faction meeting that he had never seen the phenomenon of someone already saying they want to be prime minister when they, quote, haven't even warmed up their chair as an MK yet, member of the Knesset. I've never seen this happen. Days after the election, instead of talking about what can be done to help the country, about the middle class, or asking where is the money, a person only talks about how they want to be prime minister. Lieberman stated, after Lapid was quoted earlier, that he could replace Prime Minister Netanyahu in a year and a half if he opted to remain in the opposition. And Netanyahu wants Lapid in his new coalition. So this will be interesting. Lapid is demanding to be foreign minister, which Lieberman was going to accept. But then Lapid also wants his party to have all kinds of other influential slots. Meanwhile, after a 7-month investigation, 2 individuals linked with Hezbollah have been found to be involved in a bomb attack on a bus in the Bulgarian resort of Burgas last July that killed 5 Israeli tourists. Bulgaria's interior minister issued the report today. The conclusions should open the way for the European Union to join the United States in branding Hezbollah a terrorist organization, since there is now a clear connection to an attack on EU territory. 3 people were involved, 2 of whom had passports from Australia and Canada. The Interior Minister, the Bulgarian, said, "We have established that the 2 were members," the other one died, that the 2 were members of the militant wing Hezbollah. Israel had long blamed the attack on Hezbollah and Iran. The Netherlands said back in August that the EU should follow the US lead in designating Hezbollah a terrorist organization. In Egypt, Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, in a landmark visit there today, was blasted or received a very uneasy reception from Ahmed El-Tayeb, Egypt's most prominent Muslim cleric. And this happened at Al-Azhar, which is Sunni Muslim, the Sunni Muslim world's foremost Islamic institution. So this is going on in Cairo. El-Tayeb warned mainly Shiite Iran, with Ahmadinejad there, against interference in Bahrain, and said Egypt rejects any spread of Shiism in the Sunni world. El-Tayeb then did not join Ahmadinejad at a press conference, so that's interesting. Back home in Iran, a close ally of Ahmadinejad, a former prosecutor general, was arrested and taken to prison 2 years after a parliamentary probe found this fellow responsible for deaths by torture of at least 3 jailed anti-government protesters. Ahmadinejad has been feuding with the Larijani brothers, who are like the mob. I'll get into this in my next week in review. I have discussed it before, but the Larijanis include Parliament Speaker Ali, and they are the favorites of Ayatollah Khamenei, but this very public feud shows Khamenei is also losing control. Tokyo summoned China's envoy today in protest after what it says was another incursion into its territorial waters around the disputed islands in the East China Sea, the Senkakus to Japan, the Diaoyus to China. Apparently, 2 maritime surveillance boats from China spent much of Monday in waters around the islands. They're not supposed to be there. Also today, Japan accused China of aiming ship-based missiles at a Japanese naval vessel in the East China Sea in what it described as a dangerous escalation. I'd say that is. Japanese Defense Minister Onodera said Tokyo had lodged a formal protest over the matter. Curiously, this happened on January 30th, but Japan didn't bring it up till today. Japan claims that the Chinese-class frigate locked its fire control radar onto the Japanese destroyer Udachi. So that is not good. Asked why they waited a week to make this announcement, a Defense Ministry spokesman said it took time to recheck data collected by the Japanese ships to eliminate the possibility of a false alarm. North Korea's state media today, a lot of stuff happened today, said it is planning something stronger than a nuclear test to respond to what it called signs that it is about to be attacked by the U.S. Today's statement is notable because it went beyond the previous criticism of sanctions to allege that the U.S. is planning a nuclear attack with the help of South Korea. South Korean President Lee, in an interview published by a Seoul newspaper today, joined the speculation by suggesting that North Korea may try to detonate 2 or more explosives at the same time. Turning to the world of sports, exactly 1 year before the start of the 2014 Winter Olympics in Sochi, American downhill champion Lindsey Vonn tore her ACL and MCL in her right knee today at a Super G race at the World Championships in Switzerland. She's just 3 World Cup wins from tying the all-time record. She has 59. She's had such a horrible year personally and with illness and injury, so this really sucks. But hang in there, Lindsey. We love you. But speaking of the Sochi Olympics, by the way, I've said this in my Week in Review column going back years when Sochi was first selected. This is going to be an unmitigated disaster. President Putin has been there this week checking on preparations. The mafia is raking in all the money. Costs are skyrocketing. It's so many times over Vancouver, it's not funny. And only half the hotels, 1 year before, only half the hotels have been built. Don't go to Sochi. Avoid Sochi. Now, turning to the world of music, yesterday, I missed this, was the 30th anniversary of Karen Carpenter's death. That was so tragic. She died at age 32 of heart failure. And then today we learned that the lead singer of the Troggs, Reg Presley, died of lung cancer after a long battle with it. He was just 71. So we honor Reg Presley, lead singer of the Troggs. Take care.